Welcome to the Trino Community Broadcast.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Trino Community Broadcast, episode number 75. Manfred, we're 3/4 of the way to 100 here. Bit of a landmark episode, but as always, it's the two of us back to bring the Trino community another talk about what's going on in the Trino ecosystem.
Yeah, it's awesome. Honestly, I think we're gonna make it to 100. Like, come on, we can do this.
Yeah, I
it's
think
gonna
so.
take us a while, but like whatever.
Yeah, this is our mission here. Is we'll keep it going.
Yeah, our cadence has slowed down a little bit because both of us are not full-time involved anymore in Trino, but like we're still holding up the torch and running this as much as we can. I just did the Trino Gateway Dev Sync today at 6 o'clock in the morning because we have people over in Asia, and we have a whole lot of fun there all the time. So it's always good to have stuff happening in the Trino community. So today we're gonna have a cool guest as well. We're gonna talk about JDBC, ODBC, and I'm gonna call this now the White Lion because there was a TV show long before Lion King was a thing, and that lion was called Simba, not Kimba.
Interesting. So are you saying the Lion King stole the name from?
Oh yeah, it's an anime of a white lion. It was exactly like it is a total ripoff.
Who knew?
Yeah, it's very fun. You should check it out. It's called Simba the White Lion.
Okay,
but we're gonna talk about a different Simba thing today.
Yeah, I mean Simba the technology rather than Simba the origin of the lion from the Lion Kings. But in any case, we also need to start by catching up on what's been going on in the Trino community and development. And a slightly sad thing is we have no releases to talk about, Manfred.
Yeah, well, it's kind of our fault and kind of not our fault. So what's going on? So there's less of us working now on releases in general. I have sort of stopped doing the release note stuff, and everyone else is also super busy. The weather is very nice outside, so we end up having a bit of a summer slump as well. And then the latest thing that happened is actual release blocker, and we have a meeting on Friday. All the core kind of maintainers that deal with that, including myself and Martin and Mateusz and others, and that is. When we cut releases with Maven, which is our build tool, our dependencies and our binaries and everything gets deployed to the default repository called Maven Central, which is built in, and everyone in the Java ecosystem uses that, including people that use Gradle and whatever else. The binaries that get deployed, that's also where you download binaries from. When you go to the Trino website and you go Trino.io and go download Tarball, you get that from that very, very large repository of artifacts. They changed and have been announcing this for, 2 years now that they're going to do it. The deadline arrived on the 30th of June that you have to use the new API and stuff to upload. And we started implementing that and like a little bit before and got it working and stuff fine. But what we did not know is there's two headaches we have. One is that with Java, and that's very weird, with Java 23 and 24, Java doc jars automatically get the fonts embedded. So suddenly the Java doc jars get very big, which is bad, but it wouldn't be too bad if not for the fact that the central deployment has a limit now of 2 GB per release. And Trino sits at about 6. So why is that so big in our case? Well, we ship the Tarball, which is like roughly a gig on its own, so that makes sense. We also ship each plugin as a zip, which is required because if you want to install a plugin separately, you can just download that zip, put it in the plugins folder, and you're good to go. That's what I showed recently, actually, when we had the Trino Community Broadcast about the Trino packaging approach. So now we have to figure out what to do. Like, can we reduce it down enough to still deploy there? Can we get some sort of exemption or whatever else? We don't know at this stage. We'll discuss this on Friday and hopefully get a release out sometime after.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just impossible to do a release with the current infrastructure, right? So
Yeah.
this is the truest release blocker, Manfred. It's like sometimes a release blocker is like, well, we probably shouldn't cut a release because of this issue. This is like, we are physically incapable of releasing. Our release is blocked.
Yeah. It's as much as a blocker as there can be. So we'll see. We'll figure out something, but it might take us a little while because like there's various things we can potentially do. One option would be that we figure out a way to have those bigger binaries hosted elsewhere. But hosted elsewhere would mean, I don't know, like an S3 bucket or whatever, which would then mean that we have to figure out the whole release process and how to change those things around. And then also the hosted elsewhere place would have to be something that someone pays for, which we don't currently kind of have. So TBD, as they say.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have another episode later about how we're fixing that. And
we have a Trino contributor call at the end of June or July, and we had the one in June. We discussed a couple of interesting things there. For those of you who are interested, here is the notes. We talked about Java 24, Opera, Rigo. Interesting also the history server from Roy, which is basically the query history that runs in Trino is only in memory, but there's work ongoing that the Trino gateway potentially saves more of that in its Trino gateway database and then provides a UI. So that's moving ahead. So there's a couple of really interesting developments, and like feel free to check out the discussion there. It was really good. And the next one is on 23rd of July. And by then we should definitely know something about our release approach. So if you're interested to get an update, join us for that call.
Yeah, and it should be said that though the release has not yet come out, when it does, it will be a very large one. So it's not like development has come to a crunching halt. It's just the release process has come to a crunching halt. So
yeah. PR merges are, how to say, running full steam ahead.
Yeah, so it just means that one day we'll get maybe the biggest Trino release ever. So
I mean, like the last release for 76 that we talked in our last broadcast was also arguably pretty big because the releases got slower. I guess we'll have another one of those.
Yeah, it's the cadence may be slower, but the material involved is constant. So less frequent just means bigger and better releases.
Exactly.
In any case, Manfred, we have a guest for this episode.
Do we want to talk about that? Or quickly, one note before we pull in Trevor, and I wanted to mention this because it's kind of related. So on the website, we now have more information about Trino Software Foundation, sort of our mission, the stakeholders, and contacting us and stuff like that, our responsibilities as the Trino Software Foundation. And also we have a new page about sponsoring and support, which comes right into play because we do need more maintainers. We do need especially also more reviewers. In terms of the maintainers, we are potentially going to have maintainers that are responsible for specific components. So only like somebody that's like knows one connector very well. That's kind of currently ongoing discussion. But please do chime in the community and help us out with reviews and whatever else. There's more ideas on how to help us on this page. And now you can play.
Hello. Welcome to the Trino Community Broadcast, Trevor.
Hello. Hi, Cole. Hi, Manfred. How are you doing?
Good. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the White Lion.
Yeah. You want to tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're here to talk about things related to Trino?
Yeah, sure. I'm Trevor Denning. I'm a principal solutions engineer at Insight Software. I've been here for about 10 years. I started my career as a software developer about a little over 20 years ago. Started in the rental management industry as a partner, building pretty much all of their new development, all their new software. And about 10 years ago, I moved to Insight Software and went from a dev role into the front side. So now I'm talking to clients and doing evaluations and answering questions.
That's a fair way. I mean, I'm wearing the 10-year Trino t-shirt today, so
Nice.
That leads me to the next question.
They should
When
give
did
me
you
one of those.
discover that?
Oh, sorry about that. What was that?
When did you discover like Trino? I guess it was even called Presto back then.
Yeah, so Trino was introduced about 3 years ago, 4 years ago for me when I joined the Simba side of Insight Software. So I originally started with the Logi Analytics, and when that got acquired by Insight Software in 2021 or 22, about the same time as Simba did, I started getting into some of the other connectivity options and
Okay.
diving into the Trino world.
Cool.
So, like, what is Simba? I think that's probably an important question to get to. Is like you're working on it, and to some extent, it's connected to Trino. It's kind of the topic of our episode. Almost is we're gonna do a dive into this, but in as few words as possible, how would you define it?
So Simba is your all-around data connectivity solution. So you're able to connect BI tools, easily integrate with BI tools, ETL tools, pretty much any kind of data ops that you might have. You can start pulling, getting data, and move on down the road. It's a very it's at its core is very simple. You're able to execute and pass through queries and then get a result. So there's a lot more to it when we get down into the weeds, but at its bare basics, it's just getting the data to where it needs to go to some sort of application. Simba started we'll get into this a little bit more later, but about 30 years ago, so that I'm not sure if the White Lion was around back then, but
I see. I googled this after Manfred mentioned it. This show is from 19.
I did too.
It's from 1950, so I think he's right that it came first.
I'm a little taken back by that one. We must have stole that name from them. Wonder if it's an acronym for something now. I really want to dig into this more about the origins.
We know where it all comes from. We stand on great shoulders of an anime from the 50s, I guess.
Yeah, so back in about 30 years ago, Simba teamed up with Microsoft and co-developed the ODBC standards, which are still applicable today. So we still have the same ODBC standards, are not, well, it's grown over time, but standards in the software industry, they're not really designed to last that long. I mean, that if you want to prolong your software, you do create some sort of standards, but at the end of the day, to last for 30 years, it's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, I think that means that they got it pretty good, right? It's if a standard falls out of date, then there's a new competing standard before you wake up the next morning. Like people are not afraid to establish new standards all the time, but ODBC has really stood the test of time for what it does. It is the standard, which is impressive.
Yeah.
So just for just to clear up the confusion, or like so Simba is the same company, like there's also like as Magnitude, right? Like that's the other name that comes up with the ODBC driver. Is that like the same, or is it like a merger, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so Magnitude acquired Simba at some point, and I don't recall the actual year of that. And then Insight Software acquired Magnitude.
Okay, so now it's
we
all Insight Software. Okay.
Yeah, we all fall under the same umbrella as Insight Software. Now, Insight Software has the Office of the CFO, which gives you a bunch of programs and tools that you can use for your company, for your financial parts of your company. But then we've got Logi Symphony and Simba, which are the data and analytics side. So there's pretty much the umbrella of Insight Software goes into two categories, and those we're on the data and analytics.
Okay, that obviously flows well together because Logi Symphony is a BI application and platform, right? And Simba is the connectivity to the data sources that the BI thing reports on, right? Like, is that a fair description?
Yeah. So in general, BI tools have a bunch of different connections out of the box, that you can do. You can't just stick to one type, ODBC or JDBC. You've got to have all different types of connectivity. But so it does extend. Logi Symphony does extend outside of Simba, but being able to connect to all of these, I don't want to call them other, but better maybe data sources is great. So you've got all your standard data sources, and then you've got the where the real world where you've got companies building their own data sources and integrating their own niche categories, and that's where Simba comes in. So we can really almost connect to anything. There's no limits to the data connectivity that we can do.
Well, do we want to pull up your slides and have you walk the community through it with a little bit more precision?
Yeah, sure. Let's
All right.
go ahead and jump in. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Simba, which is, we kind of already went through this. We've got 30 years of experience. Just wanted to thank everybody for joining. So I guess we already kind of talked about myself, so I'll skip that one. So today's demo, first off, I don't want to anybody and think that you're just going to be looking at slides this whole time. That's not necessarily something that I like to do. So we're going to try to get through these slides as quick as possible. I've only got a few of them, and then I want to actually get into a demo of Symphony, or Simba, and show us connecting to. First, we're going to add some data to an Iceberg catalog, and then go ahead and connect using Excel, and then kind of show pretty much how easy it is to connect and use our drivers. Then from there, we'll go ahead and build something in Power BI.
Sorry, did you say connect to Iceberg with Excel?
Yes. So we're just going to pull in some data into Excel using an ODBC driver.
Interesting. It sounds useful for a lot of business people who don't want to write SQL, so I'm intrigued.
Well, Excel is still the most widely used business intelligence tool.
Correct. No, it's important, and this gives old tech and new tech a good home together. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way,
well.
the slides, we will interrupt you anyway, so it's all good.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah. So, and Excel also it's a really great tool because it shows the flattened schema, the common table expression, I guess, of just columns and rows. In today's world of the objects and everything as columns and nested objects, being able to show it as a flattened common context and so that everybody can understand it is always key.
Cool.
All right, so let's take a moment and let's talk about Simba. So we did cover this a little bit. So back in 1992, we collaborated with Microsoft and co-developed the first standard-based ODBC driver. ODBC is open database connectivity. It's the standard API that enables applications to access different database management systems using a common set of function calls. So ODBC has become the go-to standard for database connectivity, and it's widely adopted by business intelligence tools like Excel, Power BI, Tableau, and Logi Symphony. But it's also got a range of use cases, and I think we mentioned it earlier, where ETL tools, data ops, just anything that you need to connect to, any application that you need to connect the data. So fast forward to today, and we continue to move data securely and efficiently between your application and the data sources that you rely on. So whether you're accessing cloud or on-premise data, Simba makes the connection seamless.
Okay, so I have a first or two questions. Why didn't Microsoft just do that themselves and open the standard?
Yeah, so they were doing a lot at that time, is what it came down to, and to be able to offload some of that development to another company was something that they were looking for. We actually wrote the first ODBC driver, or some ODBC driver for Microsoft, and it was for a SQL Server, and it was called Simba. So it was installed with your operating system, and you could directly connect to your SQL Server through your machine.
Okay, cool. So the other question or / remark I have is, we talked Microsoft, now you talked SQL Server. Obviously, that brings in the whole notion of Windows. But from what I know, ODBC is not a Windows only thing. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So all you need is an ODBC driver manager, and that can be Windows, Mac, or Linux. So you can pretty much put it on any operating system now.
Okay, so it's a cross-platform thing these days to some degree.
Yep. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So out of the box, Simba has 60 plus ODBC and JDBC drivers. They provide high performance access to platforms like Snowflake, MongoDB, Google BigQuery, Salesforce, and yes, our most popular driver, which is Trino. So these drivers are basically designed to simplify your integration and speed up time to value for your analytics and reporting projects. So on the next part, we've got the Simba SDK. Our SDK is the software development kit it's the toolkit, which is the foundation of all of our drivers. So this allows you or the customers, developers, to build their own driver. So if you've got your own niche data source, or you've got some sort of proprietary integration, then this allows you to build your own driver, and access all of the powerful framework that we need, or the same powerful framework as all of our drivers.
Okay, that's interesting. So related question, like you just mentioned earlier that there's a Salesforce connector, but Salesforce is just an API. There's yes, there's a database underneath, but you typically don't get access. So does the Simba SDK allow you to basically write connectors to your kind of REST API, SASE kind of own custom backend as well then, and expose that then basically as an ODBC data source?
Yes, and that's a very common use case. So it's a REST API. If you have a REST API backend, you can go use our driver to our SDK to build on top of it and make your calls, and then return. The big, I guess, piece would be returning the table or the data in the ODBC format, which is that common table expression of rows and columns. So you have to map the data basically to it. But outside of that, Workday, Google Ads, we've got many RESTful drivers available.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then finally, we have our Simba managed services, which is if you're building a driver, or if you can't do it yourself, we have our engineering team, which is ready to help from developing and testing long-term support. We handle the technical lifting so that your company doesn't have to. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about how it works. Out of the box, we mentioned earlier, your BI reporting tool and ETL tools come equipped with their to connect to a variety of data sources without any third-party assistance. However, there is a vast world of additional data sources that exist that these tools could potentially have access to with the right support, and that's where Simba comes in. Simba drivers act as the plugin to your existing BI tool, reporting, or ETL tools, enabling them to connect to additional data sources seamlessly. By integrating the Simba driver, you unlock the capabilities of it and extend the reach of your BI tools, allowing you to harness data from a spectrum of from broader spectrum of sources. So with Simba, you can connect to basically any data source using standard SQL, regardless of the underlying data structure.
It's interesting to me that Trino would be as popular as it is, because though Trino's used everywhere, it also has a ton of integrations on its own. So that it would go through Simba's, implying there's lots of people doing things with things that aren't natively supported by Trino or don't have existing Trino connections. Do you know what that might look like? Like what is Trino missing that Simba's filling in the gaps for? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that's something that we're going to get into a little bit, but the idea is Simba takes kind of a white glove approach to enterprise support. So when it comes to this world of Trino, it's an open source tool, and being able to have enterprise level support on open source tools is something that companies really look for.
Okay.
So, question: can you go back? So, when there is a driver to these underlying data sources, what does the BI tool actually like? I don't know enough about the ODBC standard, but like in your BI tool, you write a SQL query. And then does that just get passed through straight, or is there some translation in place or so? Because you just mentioned that like it's the same SQL for all of them, but like clearly MongoDB and Trino and like BigQuery or whatever, they don't have the same SQL, like aka MongoDB doesn't have any, for example. So can you explain how that works? So what's actually happening there?
Yeah, so I mean, and this comes in with your last question about RESTful APIs. So what we have is a SQL parser, and what you take that SQL query and you parse out all the pieces that you need for your API. So whether that's an RPC or a RESTful API, whatever kind of API that you need to get your data, you can take out all the pieces of that query and split it up and then pass it to whatever your API requires. So someone like Mongo, they have, if you're selecting columns, tables, you're going to parse that query, get all the information that you need, and then send that over to Mongo and get the data that you need.
And your driver does that?
Yes.
Huh. So that's kind of like how Trino Connected does it then.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at the also, something that I didn't really dig into too much at our SDK, which is it it allows you to deploy it the same code, or so you write it once. What we have is our data store implementation layer. So you write the code once inside of that layer, and then you're able to build it as an ODBC for Windows, or you can do it as an ODBC for Mac and Linux. But then you can also, we've got tools that will allow you to compile it as JDBC as well. So the same, you can write the code once and then deploy it as all of these other implementations.
What language is this then written in? Like C?
So it's C++, and then you're also able to do it in Java, but and then we use to compile, let's say, the C++ as Java. I think we have the GNI compiler that allows us to do that, and then a similar compiler to do it the other way around. So, but typically for ODBC, you're going to want to write it in C++,
Mm-hmm.
and also to take advantage of all of our SQL parser and SQL engine.
Cool. I'll ask more questions when you demo this with Trino.
Yeah, we should.
Okay. Yeah.
We gotta get moving a little
Sounds
bit.
Yeah, sounds good. So this is just our example of Power BI, and so as an example, Power BI out of the box, it connects to a bunch of data sources. However, you see this list over here of some potential drivers that a list of drivers that Simba has that are not included in Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's dive into why should I care. And Claude says that Simba is best for enterprise BI performance and reliability. I don't know why I put perforce.
I think you were thinking of the old version control system that everyone hates.
Yeah, and I use that way too much. So it's probably exactly what I was doing. All right, so one of the topics that we get into, the open source Trino, it has a driver. It has, I believe, a JDBC driver. And so I went into AI and I asked, what's the difference between the Simba driver and the open source version? And here was a list of that it came up with. Basically, it comes down to, we have enterprise level support and SLAs. So generally speaking, it's that we take a white glove approach, generating a partnership to make things, to make sure things just work. We have ready and predictable release schedules, production ready security. So we see a few things on there, like the enterprise auth for Kerberos, LDAP, and OAuth. But we can take that even further, depending upon what a customer might need. Recently, I think we had added OpenID and Azure Active Directory as two more options. So also we have the ability to our logging support, our logging tools, debugging tools, really allow you to find out where the performance may be taking a hit, or anything like that within the driver that you're just trying to identify a problem. You can take our logging and kind of identify it pretty easily. Also with you've got branding, so you can brand the driver as your own driver. You don't need it to say Simba Trino ODBC driver. It can be your company's name all the way through. So I at the end of the day, the reason that Trino is so popular for us is we give enterprise level support for the open source system.
I have to clarify a few things about this all, but like that's definitely interesting. Maybe we need to go back to that question that I had, because you have type handling and query pushed on there. So when, like, at least in a JDBC driver in Trino, you write the query and it gets passed straight through, like basically goes straight to Trino as it is. There is no translation or whatever happening, which means you can take advantage of any SQL features of Trino. From what you described now, with like including like user-defined functions written in SQL or in Python and stuff like that. From what I understand now about the Simba driver, it doesn't do straight query pass. Like, it doesn't push the whole query through automatically. It does some sort of like rewriting interpretation or something. Is that right or not really?
Not for the Trino driver, because it's Trino. You've got your extremely powerful engine, plus you do all of the optimizations, through the coordinator and splits. So we don't need to do that. But here, let me go to this one. So I did want to dig into that feature, because that was something that I kind of knew would come up. So what we do is we pass that query down. So we're able to use the coordinator, and that creates the distributed query plan. This plan is broken into stages. So the Trino query engine, you don't get much better than that, right? So so what Simba does is, a lot of other tools, they have to get that query, but Trino's passing back data, as it's getting it. And the other drivers, they have to sit there and wait for the entire query to be done, hold that data in memory, and then display the data once they get it. Whereas when our Simba driver gets the results, we're sending them. So we're getting data as we receive it, and that's one of the big differences.
So that's the same how the Trino protocol / our JDBC wrapper around it also works. Then that's cool.
Okay. Yeah. So we're able to take advantage of the distributed SQL query engine instead of holding on to the data in memory.
So in that sense, then, like, if you go back to your other slide, there's like feature parity basically there, like the type mapping and that sort of stuff. The open source JDBC driver is the same. It's just you also have an ODBC driver, which is definitely a very different thing, right? Like, that's why Trino doesn't have any PowerBI integration, because we don't have an ODBC driver, right? Like, the other thing I wanted to quickly mention is, when it comes to security, from what I understand, the Trino JDBC driver does support a whole bunch of other protocols as well. Like, it definitely supports the OAuth and that kind of stuff, passing through, not like basic authentication and then back into LDAP and OAuth, but not the driver itself. It just passes it through to Trino, right? So there might be a difference there. And then in terms of logging and diagnostics, there is open telemetry in the Trino JDBC driver, which you can use, and then you can debug all the way into Trino as well. But yes, that's a bit more complex. So I don't know what the Simba drivers have. So they're quite similar, but you definitely have a very much standalone feature, in the sense that you have an ODBC driver, which certified with Power BI. That's a tall order. I'm guessing the relationship to Microsoft helped there.
Yeah, and that's a long process that you have to go through. It's not an easy thing to do. Even to find a person who to contact, to get certified with Microsoft. It's not easy. And thanks for the clarification. I guess Claude was wrong. Or when I added this, I added it directly to AI, and I was saying, okay, what's the difference? And this is what it came up with.
It just wants to please you, and it knows who you work for. It's like, we're going to give you
really
everything.
Was.
But
that's cool.
Of course, there are differences, and an open source tool with open source connections is not the same thing as an enterprise tool with support for other enterprise connections. It's
exactly
different things.
Yeah, and I guess
for different solutions.
At the end of the day, I guess the most important thing I wanted to get out of it is the white glove approach that we take for enterprise.
Yeah, that's cool.
Do we want to dive into a demo real quick?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get on with it. So the only thing would be what Claude said also was, when would I want to use the open source one versus Simba, and one would be for development testing in simple connectivity. And then for Simba, it's the enterprise level BI performance and reliability.
Cool.
And let's go ahead and get into the demo. So I'm gonna dig out of this because I did create this demo. So, but I don't want to. I want to do it live because it's it's always better live. So I didn't want to talk over the recording. So yeah, so let's start off with I for demos, I'm a developer, so I got to give credit where it's due. I took this guy's project, the wireless R, the Trino Iceberg Playground. We're going to use this, add some data to it, and then go ahead and use our driver to connect.
Is wireless R, is that your account or is that someone else?
No, this is someone else. Yep, I
have not seen this project before. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a great, easy solution. The only thing I changed with it was the example properties. That's the catalog that they created. So I wanted ours to say iceberg instead of example. So this is a real easy Docker solution that I used in order to run Trino and iceberg. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and create our schema. And I've just got a few queries that I got to add here. I'm going to go ahead and add the table. And I've got a query, and the query doesn't really matter, but it's got categories, some attributes, and we're rolling up some data, aggregating some data so that we can get a visual or two out of it. And I
also have another question here. You're using Visual Studio Code and you're running the Trino CLI, is that right?
Yeah.
So
terminal as a CLI, basically.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get into it, but what I did was I just grabbed the Trino shell, or getting into the Docker container and running it directly.
Oh, running it right in there. Okay, cool.
Yeah. This is Manfred, I've learned this is super common when you're like developing by SSHing into a machine. Is that way you can modify things with VS Code and still have your terminal window in the same thing. So
yeah. And I went crazy, got 100,000 rows instead of during my testing. Of course, I only used 1,000, so I probably I'd like to make things exciting. So so from here, let's go ahead and get into our Trino. So under your ODBC, and this would be the driver manager that I was talking about. This is just the administrator for Windows that you can come in and change some of the configurations for the ODBC driver. I've already connected, but let's go ahead and change my catalog to the one that we created, and then select my new schema. And I'm going to test it, make sure that we're okay, and looks like we're good to go. So inside of here, I did want to mention there's a bunch of different advanced options that we can really get granular and start talking about, but a lot of things. But since for time here, I just wanted to point out a couple of them, which are one of them, which is allow metadata from multiple catalogs. It's nice when you're building BI tools and you want to connect to a bunch of different catalogs. And but if you're looking for just straight performance, you probably wouldn't want to add that one.
Yeah,
Also,
because there can be a lot of metadata, right?
Yeah, there's certain times where that can slow things down when you have a ton of metadata. So go ahead and close this out. Well, and then also the two additional authentication methods that I mentioned earlier are here. These we've just added. All right, so from there, you've done that. Let's go ahead and get into Excel.
So that driver manages an operating system kind of thing, and then any application that understands about ODBC just sort of like looks at that. Is that how it is?
Yes, yeah. So you're setting up the catalog, the schema, everything inside of there, and then when we connect to the ODBC, it's the connection's already done. I mean, it's done inside of that driver manager. Okay. So with Excel, you've got under get data from ODBC, we can select our DSN name, which that was the same name as this guy right here. So it's Simba Trino. Okay. And it should pull up our schema, our metadata. So select our new schema and load it. And this is important. I like to show just, how the Simba driver formats the data. So it's just a typical table. It's that common context so that everybody can understand it.
And is the
including your
data,
application.
like the data now at this stage is fully loaded into Excel there, right?
Yeah, Excel stopped for whatever reason. It stopped at 36,000.
That's how many you inserted. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, is the filter you actually didn't get to all the way to the limit. So
gotcha. Yeah, so it did add it all.
Yeah. Is this read only, or if I go edit a cell, is that going to write back to my Iceberg catalog?
Excel is not will not do that. You would have to have additional tools to be able to write back.
Okay.
But for making charts and all that stuff, for people that are familiar with Excel, they'll be go crazy like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not me, but
Yep. Actually, I think Excel is my preferred BI tool. So I have to make graphics and doing things. I mean, I normally will use Google Sheets, but it's the same thing, right? It's a really good way to visualize data, actually. So
sometimes you just have to look at the table to see what you've got. So that you can get started, just being able to see, okay, this is a date column. This is a column that I can use as an aggregate. And this is an attribute column. And at the end of the day, that's what all visuals are created off of. So just being able to see that structure, it's very helpful.
Cool.
So we're now in Power BI. I'm going to kind of move quickly through this, but it's a great easy way, but same thing. They've got a ton of different ways of connecting. So I actually am just going to select ODBC in here. That way we don't have to, I guess we could go find it, but I'm not very good when it comes to skimming things. So we're going to use that. And the same thing, we've got our Simba Trino. There's some additional options. You can add a connection string, and this connection string would be, it would allow you to change some of those advanced options for just this connection only. And select OK. And same thing, we're going to select our data source. And something that happens with Power BI that when I select load, it's going to load this data into its own warehouse, so that we're not using Trino as the backend when beyond this point. But that's something that I want to point out in a minute. and we'll get back into. So Power BI has an option to, if you have a custom connector, which we do, you're able to run the query directly. So you don't have to, or so that we can use, Trino's powerful query engine to run the queries and not or just kind of forego the Power BI warehouse altogether. So for this, I always like to visualize in some sort of map because everybody's seen charts and that gets kind of boring. Maps I always think are better. And select some data. All right, great. From here, I don't like that color. Change that to grayscale. That looks better. And now, if you notice, everything's the same color on there. So I'm going to change it to gradient so that we can, get some separation and from our aggregate, which is that sell price. The lowest value, let's use something traditional. Let's go red, yellow, and possibly green. That way we can see, low, medium, and high. It's kind of the traditional context for when you're looking at charts. Oh, did I not keep that green?
Yeah, you didn't click OK on the green, so it ended up being gray.
Well, boo. Let's try that again. All right, Christmas. Perfect. So, yeah. So as you can see how easy it is to build visuals just off of connecting the data and off we ran and built something. But we did mention, or I did touch on direct query. So I did want to point that out that Simba, we do have the option to create a custom driver. I mean, a custom connector in Power BI. So this way we can enable some of those deeper features that Power BI has. So I do have that ready. Our custom connector is called Simba Trino. And from here, we've got to connect to, for some reason, it has us add our DS in again. And I'm going to go ahead and set the catalog to our iceberg, but we have direct query here. So this is not importing the data into that warehouse. We're doing it directly here. So
and that's obviously very important because like Trino typically connects to very large data warehouses. And then if you run a query and like Power BI tries to import all the data, then that's going to be crazy in terms of like time and cost and everything. And then the queries will also be slow because Trino doesn't actually run the queries anymore. They are run directly in Power BI, right? So
yeah, it's just using Trino's powerful query engine rather than going directly in the native Power BI. When you're aggregating data and moving data, when it comes to large scale, it starts affecting your performance. There's many use cases that we can get into, but what's nice about this, so I'm going to go ahead and select some attribute columns so that we can kind of show what Trino's doing on the back end. So I have my Trino instance here. And so it's too fast for
Yeah.
For you can go finish.
To be able to view it.
If you go, if you click on finish, then you can see all the finished queries as well.
Yeah, so hopefully once we start scrolling down, you're seeing some of this change. And what I'm looking for, there we go. So it actually came in, got the query. When we run it down here, you can see it's paging the data, getting the next result set. So And if you keep scrolling, it's going to go back and hit the query engine again, and keep pulling data instead of pulling it directly from Power BI.
That's very cool.
So yeah, so this is, as you can see, how it's unfortunately we could get in, keep going and talk about all the features independently, but this is kind of an over, looking at it at a broad view, and just the simplicity and everything, and how easy everything gets. Simba makes your BI tools. You can just start connecting your data and build.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good option to use the ODBC driver if you're a Power BI user with Trino. That's a great solution. Question: the JDBC driver and also the ODBC driver, what's going on there in terms of like, what's your next plans? Like, obviously you just added 2 authentication system, which is really cool. What are the plans to do further stuff there?
That's a good question. So that we're constantly upgrading. Let's say for FIBS, we have to keep up with the for OpenSSL. Make sure that we're still FIPS compliant. So we're constantly updating the driver, also running security scans, everything like that. Every time we make an upgrade to our SDK, we're adding new features to the Trino drivers. So I don't know off the top of my head exactly what some of those features are, but I know that we're actively and continually working on it.
But the JDBC driver is essentially not related at all to the Trino open source JDBC driver. It's a completely separate code base that sits on top of your ODBC and SDK work, right?
Yes, it's it's Simba's only.
Completely separate, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, what does that mean in terms of Java version requirements?
So Java, that's another good question. I know that we're having to keep up with all the latest and greatest standards. If there's anything compliance related, we continually update it, but I'm not sure as well.
Yeah, no. The reason I'm asking is because in Trino we gave up on Java 8 support, so we moved to like support Java 11 only. So I don't know, people that are stuck in like Java 8 world, they might get away with the Simba one. I don't know, but like that might be a thing.
Yeah, and that is something that we still have customers out there, and that's something that we have to support moving forward. Is some of the Java versions. Yeah.
The other thing is the Trino driver had performance improvements with the spooling protocol support. I'm guessing that's pretty damn new in Trino. So are you probably working towards that at some stage, I'm guessing?
So ODBC has its own, or it handles the pooling and spooling inside of the ODBC manager. So that's something that all of our drivers come equipped with and support. But yeah, and as far as JDBC, that's something that we should be looking at.
Awesome.
For sure.
Cool. Well, that's a great demo. The demo gets we're happy with you, Trevor. Congratulations.
Hey, yep. Thank you.
And it's a good example of kind of blending the world of open source with kind of this expectations of fully robust, well-supported enterprise technologies in a way that's like, you could do it yourself, but if you don't want to, like, there's always a way to make sure that you don't have to. So for the non-engineering driven companies, this is a good solution to managing and deploying open source.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Trevor. We appreciate it. if you're interested in learning more, I guess you could scan the QR code on the screen.
We'll also have links in the show notes to, like, also including that example project probably, and like we have links to the presentation and all that kind of stuff coming in the show notes. So we should be good to go for anyone that wants to find you, also on LinkedIn including, and reach out to you or Simba. Thank you so much again. Also, shout out to Paige for organizing this all. It's been taking us many months to get this rolling, but we did it. So thank you very much. It's been great.
Yeah, Paige is great. I'm glad she got me included in this, and thank y'all. Yeah, this is my first live event.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Yep, made it through.
Yeah, you did well. So anything else you wanted to mention, Trevor, before we round this show out today?
No, I just want to thank you and all of your viewers for having us. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you as well. All right, Manfred.
Interesting, huh? Writing a JDBC driver, cross-compiling and jazzing over from the ODBC world. I'm glad I'm not working on that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pay much attention in my compilers course in college, Manfred. I think, and that knowledge has slowly escaped me over the ensuing years as I've not leveraged it at all in my day-to-day. So
yeah, see, I'm a step ahead of you. I never had a class like that because
I mean, give it another couple years and it may as well have been as if I didn't. So I'll pull this back up for our little rounding out.
Yeah, I don't know where you're gonna be, but I'm gonna be in Las Vegas, baby.
Ooh.
Just a few days, I'm going to be at the Black Hat conference. So for those of you who want to meet me, I'm going to be at the JGAT booth and do some lightning talks and stuff about our container products and our libraries products. So that should be super fun. And then on the 23rd of July, I already mentioned this earlier, we will have a contributor call again. We'll be talking about the releases and whatever we figured out there, and also other topics. It's been very great to have the June call. And then Trino Community Broadcast, we will probably arrange a time for the AWS proxy one that we delayed last time. I'm thinking we might end up doing a September one and skip the summer altogether. Well, August basically. So, but the whole timing is to be determined. And then there's a couple of other topics. But if anyone wants to follow in Trevor's successful footsteps or footsteps of many other presenters, we would love to have you and talk about Trino and whatever you are doing with Trino, right?
Yeah, on our trudge towards episode 100.
Yeah, we'll get there. Should be interesting and fun. Where are you gonna be, Cole? You just came back from a holiday, so you better get working, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at conferences. If you've been wanting to get in touch, I probably should have mentioned this like a couple episodes ago, because I was at Data and AI Summit, I was outside Snowflake Summit, I was at Data Council. But I think towards the end of this year, I'll be at Coalesce. There's a chance I'm going to go do a community meetup speaking tour across Europe in the next couple months. So if you're in Europe and you want to be in touch, reach out. I should also just say once again, thank you to Firebolt for sponsoring this. They are the ones providing the technology we need to actually make the Trino Community Broadcast happen.
Yeah, even though we had to get away without background pictures today.
Yeah, I mean that's StreamYard in their bugs with latest browsing versions is super handy. But they're working on a fix, so I'm not gonna hold too much against them. It's a good platform.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Broadcast, so.
All right, Cole. 75 is in the box.
Yeah, a good landmark, and I think that's it from both of us. So thank you all for watching. Check out the show notes on the Trino website, and we'll see you next time.